Okay, everyone. So, Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 32 has officially been released, and I'm here to give you guys my review. But as always, guys, before we get into it, I do have to ask you that if you want to show your support for the channel, make sure to leave a like, share this video out there, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to be notified whenever I post anything new on the channel. And please, guys, comment down below with whatever your thoughts are. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what we have here in this chapter. And there's definitely some stuff that we absolutely do need to discuss. So, this chapter starts off with Boruto coming into contact with one of the Mamushi clones and telling him that he is going to lead them to Ada's location. And the Mamushi clones immediately decide to follow, to follow him. And I do wonder if maybe the reason why they fell for this is because of their low IQ, because there's so many of them. It does make me wonder if it was just the, singular Mamushi, like if it was just him and not 200 of him, would he have immediately figured out that, oh, this is obviously a trap, I'm not going to fall for it? But also maybe he still would have followed because his desire to, devour Ada is just so strong that it overrides any sense of logic he may have actually had. So even if he did figure out that, oh, it was a trap, he still would have gone with him because he just wants to accomplish his goal that badly. Just something that I do wonder, but obviously they are taking advantage of the fact that there's 200 of them and the fact that their IQ was so low because of that. And we also see the other Mamushi clones also start to fly in the direction of where Boruto is, going. And we cut to Amado and we see Sumire asking him, how is this possible? How is this happening? How do the other Mamushi clones know what the clone that was talking to Boruto just heard? And Amado comes up with two possible explanations. Either they can basically share what they see and hear with each other, or it's possible that they're all connected by one singular consciousness. So this to me is interesting because we were told in chapter 5 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, if I remember correctly, that the Shinju clones, while they do all have their own unique personality, their own unique identity, they are still connected by the fact that they are one Ten Tails, and it's why they all share the same goal of devouring an Otsutsuki and growing a chakra fruit. So I'm wondering if it's the same here, and we're essentially seeing an extension of that. And we did kind of see that with Matsuri, where Jura was able to basically experience what she experienced. He was able to feel what she was feeling during her interactions with Konohamaru, and he was able to figure out that the reason why she was taken down is because she was won over by her feelings for Konohamaru that she inherited from Moegi. So I do wonder if that's what we're seeing here. And then we cut to Boruto talking to one of the clones, and he's telling him about Daemon's ability. Basically, he's telling him that if you want to accomplish your goal of devouring Ada, then you need to deal with Daemon first, because you won't be able to get to her if you don't do something about him first, because he is going to get in your way. And he talks about how Daemon essentially has limitless strength, and he really is kind of like a demon, hence, the name. And we get this moment with Mamushi, or one of the Mamushi clones, where he reveals that he remembers what Daemon's ability actually is, specifically about the weakness to his ability, where in order for it to be on, he needs to place both palms on a person. And essentially when he doesn't do that, his ability is switched off, and that it needs to be touching someone in order for it to even work. And that it can reflect everything. Even a little bit of killing intent is going to be reflected back at you. And here is where Boruto shows that he is shocked that he knows about Daemon's ability, and Ada reveals that it's possible because they are accessing Bug's memories on instinct. And this does beg the question of, are we also going to see Hidari possibly access Sasuke's memories? Because we haven't really seen that from him. We know he has access to Sasuke's abilities because he is, made from Sasuke's chakra. And here we're seeing Mamushi accessing Bug's memories. And we did see Matsuri being able to, or she inherited Moegi's ability, her feelings for Konohamaru. So this is pretty consistent with the other Shinju clones that, we've seen so far. And essentially, we basically see all of them coming together, and we see Shikamaru talking to everyone who's involved in this mission and basically telling them what the plan is. So the plan is to collect all of them in one location, have Daemon, Boruto, and Kawaki and the others just deal with most of them. And then once they've brought them down to 50, because Sarada says that with her Ohirume ability, she could probably take out 50 of them. So Shikamaru comes up with a plan to reduce their numbers down to 50. And then once that happens, Sarada will use her ability to just wipe them all out in one go. So that's the plan. And if you're familiar with, basically any story, but specifically in shonen stories, you'll know that this is a pretty common trope where if the heroes are telling you that, okay, we're going to go into this is our plan, odds are it's not exactly going to go according to plan, which is what we end up seeing in this chapter. But again, we'll get to it. So yeah, the Mamushi clones all show up. They see Ada and immediately they fly past Boruto and immediately start going to Ada. And we get a confirmation from, both what we're seeing here and from Ada that Mamushi can fly pretty fast, possibly even faster than Boruto. And we know he can fly faster than Ada because she basically confirms that, yeah, he can fly even faster than I am. And Daemon says, okay, so we're going to switch plans a little bit, fly low, and I'm going to go deal with them on the ground because Daemon, he can't fly despite how strong he actually is, which is, to me, very interesting because I still wonder why Ada can fly but Daemon can't, and why we're seeing the Mamushi clones, or Mamushi apparently in general, he can't fly, but we haven't seen that ability from the other Shinju. I wonder why is it that specific people have the Otsutsuki ability to fly, but some of them can't. It's just I'm just wondering how is it that works? So we see one of them manages to catch up to Ada, but because Daemon was touching Ada at the time, of course it gets reflected back to that clone and he gets destroyed. And this is where we also see Daemon again telling Ada to fly low, and he immediately starts fighting the clones, and he is just taking them all out, or taking a bunch of them out like it's no problem. And this is where we see, again, them taking advantage of the clones' lowered intelligence, because with just a little bit of provocation, immediately they are forgetting that you are not supposed to direct killing intent towards Daemon, because once Daemon sees that they do have killing intent, immediately he places his palms on one of the clones, and of course, that killing intent gets reflected back at them. And I do like that the chapter is showing the others' reaction to what Daemon is doing, because it's just showing us how impressive he actually is, that he's dealing with so many of them all at the same time. And yeah, Daemon is just having fun. It doesn't even seem like he's using his, full power. And Daemon, being kind of the troll master that he is basically telling you you guys are not going to get to Ada without dealing with me first, which of course provokes the clones. They immediately start having killing intent, which he immediately takes advantage of because he jumps in front of Ada, places his palms on her face, and of course that activates his reflection ability. And once again, we get comments from the others about how well Daemon is doing. Again, if you're familiar with a lot of storytelling and a lot of shonen tropes, you know that this is leading to something bad, because things never just go well for the hero. Something bad always has to happen, especially when the story emphasizes, oh, this is amazing, look how well it's going. Something bad is going to happen. And the clones immediately say, hey, you need to be careful, don't fall for his taunts. And then those clones get destroyed by Boruto. And Boruto actually makes a very good point here, where he said, listen, these guys may be dumb, but that doesn't mean you should give them time to actually think, because obviously that is dangerous, because it means that you are underestimating your opponent. And if you know Naruto, if you're familiar with the Naruto franchise, or again, this is a normal shonen trope. Once heroes start underestimating the villains, that's usually when things go bad for them. And we see the others get involved. We see Mitsuki go into sage mode, and he's using his snake sage, or his sage chakra snakes, I just got a little confused for a minute, to start attacking the clones from, underneath the ground. And Kawaki is just firing off chakra blasts at all of them. Himawari is going after them, knocking them all out, and they were able to reduce their numbers down to 50. And this is where we get the moment where Sarada activates her Mangekyo Sharingan once she gets the signal from Shikamaru. And this is where you think, okay, well, that's it. This is over. Their plan is working. It's usually when, okay, yeah, this is the moment where things just start to go bad, because we see her, she's lifting the clones, the remaining ones up, and she's about to collect them all into one of her gravity spheres and destroy them like she did with the other clones that she used Ohirume against in the previous chapter. And she also did the same thing to Ryu. But this is where we see the biggest drawback of her Ohirume ability, as long as the other drawbacks of the Mangekyo Sharingan just in general. But with Sarada, it seems like it's a little bit more severe. So yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. But yeah, her ability just stops. And we get this shot where we see her in the air and we see her head tilted back, almost like something like pushed her back. Or almost like there was a force that caused her to essentially reel back, as what we're actually seeing, in the chapter. And we see Boruto's, shocked expression. And here's where we see a panel of Sarada, and it definitely does look like there is a lot of blood coming from her right eye. Not the normal amount of blood that we see from someone, using their eyes or their Mangekyo Sharingan's ability in, that one specific eye, like what we saw with Itachi and Sasuke. Whenever they activated Amaterasu, it was only the eye that cast Amaterasu we see it bleed. But here, like, there's more than the normal amount of blood, and we see the gravity sphere start to disappear, and Sarada she's gone. She's out of it. Boruto catches her mid-air. The other Mamushi clones are still suspended in the air, and the others are confused as to what's going on. Boruto says that she's lost consciousness, and the Mamushi clones immediately start cloning themselves again. And Shikamaru is just wondering, okay, what the hell is going on here? And he said that he knew that her ability uses up a lot of chakra, but this still shouldn't have happened. And this is where he starts to figure it out, because he asks Delta, did she already use it once? And Delta says, yeah, but she only used it once. And she was a little bit unsteady afterwards. And Shikamaru figures out, it must have happened when the comms were essentially off. Their connection, thanks to Inogen's mind transmission ability, was switched off because of Koji and, his plan. And Mamushi is, obviously happy about it, because he knew that he was this close to being completely wiped out. And now he's actually very wary of what's going on. So Mamushi essentially is going to be even more difficult to deal with than before, because now he is aware, or his survival instincts are making him more aware or more careful of, these people and their abilities, and how they can, if they want to, with the correct plan, be able to wipe him out. So he's a lot more careful now. And Kawaki just starts firing chakra blasts at him, trying to destroy them. And the Mamushi clones are basically saying, don't pay attention to him, just keep multiplying. Essentially, his plan is to overwhelm them with a bunch of clones. And Kawaki tries to essentially stop them from doing that. But this is where we see Amato's warning come into place, where Kawaki, again, if he had listened to Amato, then this wouldn't be happening, because Kawaki immediately starts overheating. He did overheat, and he is gone. He can barely even move. And one of the Mamushi clones manages to slam him to the ground again, and now he's just being pinned down. His karma mark is switched off. So Kawaki is gone. Sarada is gone. Boruto right now is too worried about Sarada to focus on the battle at hand. And Himawari is seeing Kawaki, being pinned down on the ground by one of the Mamushi clones. So she's too focused on helping Kawaki now. So she's essentially out of it. Delta is trying to, of course, fight back with her eye laser beams that can, nullify regeneration abilities. But again, it just doesn't work, because the Mamushi clones, or Mamushi, just keeps cloning himself over and over and over again. So let's just pull back a minute and talk about what's going on with Sarada right here. So it looks, just based on what we're seeing, that her eye actually exploded, like it actually burst. Now, if this is true, I do wonder why we are seeing this, because we've never seen this with any of the other Mangekyo Sharingan users in the series. Like, we didn't see this with Itachi, we didn't see this with Sasuke. We saw that they both went blind, and we do know that they, that they do experience pain when they use the Mangekyo Sharingan abilities, but it's never gotten to the point where one of their eyes literally burst. Like, that's never happened before. Again, that's if that's what actually happened here, and it didn't just switch off. But yeah, it definitely does look like her right eye is just gone, which to me, if this is indeed the case, then this is very interesting. So if her eye is indeed gone, then this leads to some interesting possibilities for the future of this character. So if Sarada really did lose her right eye, she still has her left eye, but that's possibly not going to last very long, because she's used her Mangekyo Sharingan. So it's possible that her eyesight in her left eye is nearly, gone, but it could still technically be there. But if her right eye is just, permanently gone, because there is one panel where we see there is blood on the actual lens of her glasses. So yeah, again, it is possible that it burst and the blood just splattered everywhere, even right there on, the lens of her glasses. So if her right eye is gone, then my theory as to what this could mean is, in order for Sarada to, we all know that when a Mangekyo Sharingan user loses their eyesight, the only way to regain it is to get a eye transplant. And in order to essentially acquire the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan to make sure that it, doesn't run out again, that way your eyes are never going to run out of light ever again, is to gain the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. But the only way to do that is to get the eyes of a close blood relative. Well, the only close blood relative that Sarada has is Sasuke. And Sasuke does still have his right eye. He doesn't have his left eye, but he does still have his right eye. So my theory is it going to be a case where Sasuke is going to give Sarada his right eye to replace the one that she lost? Or is it going to be a case where the theory that a lot of people have been, circulating throughout this fandom is that she's going to get Sasuke's old eyes, and that's going to lead to her regaining her eyesight and awakening the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan? I don't know, but the fact that it's just her right eye alone, to me, is very interesting, because in the update that Kashin Koji got, where he saw Sarada and he saw, Hidari right next to her, in the picture that Sarada was in, it was only showing her left eye. We didn't see her right eye. So it's possible that, it's because they didn't want to spoil this. And it is possible that, her right eye is gone. And I've seen some people theorize that maybe Hidari is going to possibly give Sarada her right eye. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I don't know if I believe that. I do believe that something is going to happen with Hidari. I don't know if I believe the theory that he's going to turn on Jura. It is possible, but something is definitely going to happen. And I'm just wondering, is Ikimoto going to have Sarada, try to basically gain her right eye back? Or is it going to be a case where it's going to be sort of similar to her father and with Boruto, to where both of them lost an eye? And if you remember, this wasn't in the anime, this wasn't in the manga, but in the anime, after Sasuke, or after the fight against Ishiki, when they went back to the Leaf Village, Sasuke and Naruto were getting checked out by Sakura. I can't remember the actual name or the actual number, the actual episode, which episode number it was. But in that episode, when Sasuke, they were talking to him about how, he lost his Rinnegan, and he basically says that, look, it is what it is, a ninja learns to deal with the cards that he's been dealt. So I do wonder if if Sarada is going to also essentially adopt that lesson and go, you know what, I may not have my right eye, but it is what it is, I'm just going to learn to live with it. And she's basically going to be like, her dad and with Boruto, where they both, lost an eye, but they still learn to deal with it. Now with Boruto, he does have a bit of a workaround. Whenever he switches the Karma Mark on, he can get, Momoshiki's Byakugan, but whenever he switches it off, it's gone. He doesn't have, a right eye anymore. So I do wonder if that's going to be something that's sort of common between the three of them, where each of them, lost an eye and they both just learn to accept it and just deal with it. Which I do think would be kind of cool for her, to actually do, to say, you know what, hey, I may not have my right eye anymore. I don't have access to this incredibly powerful ability, but you know what? It is what it is. That happens when you're a shinobi. As long as you walk away with your life, you've basically won. Like what, Sasuke tried to basically tell, Boruto after the fight with Ishiki. Again, this was in the anime only. I don't remember if this was in the manga. But he basically tells him that, look, we're all lucky that we're even still alive, because in that fight, every one of us could have died considering who we were fighting against. So we should just appreciate that we're all alive. And I do wonder if Sarada is going to essentially adopt that same, motto, where she is just happy that she is able to walk away from this alive, even if I lost my eye in the process. Just is something that I'm wondering. So the last thing that I do want to talk about just for a little bit is the very last thing we see in this chapter is Inujin confirming that there's over 1,000 Mamushi clones now. And the numbers are still increasing. So yeah, Mamushi's plan is to overwhelm them with numbers. And we see a final shot of Kashin Koji, and it's basically the same as the shot that we saw from him before we saw his plan to essentially deal with Kobu. So I am wondering if Koji essentially has a plan, or if maybe this was something that he expected. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it does seem like that's what they're setting up. Anyway, that's basically where the chapter ends. And overall, I thought this chapter was okay, and I am genuinely wondering where this story is going to go, specifically with Sarada and like what she's going to do. If again her right eye really is gone, like what they're going to do with this. Are they going to get a replacement eye, or again, is she going to be like her dad and her, and her friend Boruto, and is she just going to accept that it is what it is? I'll just learn to live with it. Personally, I think it would be pretty cool if she does actually, choose to follow in her father's footsteps and her, and her friend Boruto's footsteps, where they both just accept that, this is just what it is right now. And hey, if I lost my eye, at least I did it trying to, save the village. I did it trying to save my friends. It was losing it in, in the line of duty, which is pretty normal for shinobi, but hey, at least I'm alive and, I can still keep going. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and, let you guys go. And please, guys, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. What did you think about the chapter? Personally, again, I thought it was okay. I'm still very curious to see where the story is going to go. But if you also enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, share it, subscribe again if you are new to really help support the channel. And I hope I see you guys for Boruto 2 Vortex Chapter 33 when that gets released. Bye for now.